How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is RuffledRowlit, and welcome back to a new episode of the podcast here, the Daily Dose of Pokemon. Again, today I'm going to be joined with two less people than normal, but we still have two other people joining us, which is going to be a boy, Subarashi, and our friend Cam Tendo. How you guys doing?
Yo, what's up, everybody? I am doing pretty good. I've been playing a certain game recently that it's going to be a topic later on, but other than that, I'm doing pretty darn good.
And how about you, Suba? How you doing?
I've been pretty all right, just chilling as always, and just waiting for things to come into the future, basically.
Oh yeah, you've been just going ham on the drawing, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so topics for today, guys, because we always talk about Pokemon here. You guys know it. Pokemon news, Pokemon rumors, leaks, everything like that. And today's topic is going to be a pretty interesting one. It's going to be about, well, two things. One, a potential second mythical Pokemon being added into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or a second one that's missing. And also, that's the first one. And also, the potential of, I guess, other games by ILCA, current games that are out there, new games that are competing with Pokemon, stuff like that. We're going to have that as a second topic. So that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today. If you guys are ready, let's get right into it. Starting, of course, with the mythical Pokemon. Now, if you guys are watching this stream or video, VOD, whatever, or actually we're not live, but if you're watching this video afterwards, you may not know what I'm referring to when we talk about a second mythical. But basically, this all has to do with Riddler Koo, who is a legitimate leaker. Some of you guys may know him. Some of you guys may not know him, but there is this tweet that he had as a reply to another person. And in that tweet, the person asked him, Koo, what's the +1? I'm not sure. And then basically it was a tweet where Koo said, a +1 Pokemon is going to be added to Scarlet and Violet. And he tweeted this a long, long time ago. And then he replied to this person, and this was very recently they replied to this, and he basically said, M related, and M specifically in this case might be mythical, because that's what he used for other mythicals when he mentioned them. But they still haven't revealed it yet, is what he says. So the question then becomes, what's that mythical? What's that thing that he's talking about? Well, there's actually this one gorilla Pokemon. This is from Light, who's normally part of this podcast, but he's not available right now. He can't join us today. But he did post this tweet here, which he basically showed this little gorilla and said, it seems that we're missing a new mythical Pokemon apart from Pecharunt, which might, of course, be showing up. This new Pokemon might be showing up in the upcoming Pokemon movie, which is still speculated and rumored to be happening. And the thing is it going to be a gorilla one? Because this is a drawing from the actual games of a bunch of different Pokemon like Flamigo and stuff and Palmot. But there's another Pokemon in there, some kind of gorilla, which we haven't actually seen in Scarlet and Violet. It doesn't exist in there. So the question becomes, is this thing real? Is it going to happen? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So on the screen right now, I'm just showing the actual image from in the actual game. I'm going to remove that. And we do have an artwork by none else than our own friend here, Subarashi, who drew us a pretty cool interpretation of what this gorilla could be. At least in his eyes. So here it is on the screen. And yeah, I guess let's get talking about it, because I want to hear what you guys think about this. First of all, Cam, I haven't heard your thoughts. Suba, you've already drawn a version of it, but I guess, Cam, I'm curious. What do you think? Do you think we're actually going to get another mythical? Is it going to be related to a movie? What are your thoughts on that? If you have any thoughts, that is. Because I don't know. I mean, I guess, Subarashi, do you have any thoughts on it? Do you have any ideas on where you would go with it?
Well, if they ever gonna show us a gorilla Pokemon, it'd probably be around maybe on Pokemon Day.
Yeah.
They'll give us a hint cool, there's a new Pokemon discovered in the Paldea region. And obviously or even they just forgot about it though. Maybe that'd be an absolutely strange thing to do. They literally mentioned this. Well, they showed us this Pokemon. Where does this come from? Is it from a book?
It's in the book.
Game?
It's like the Scarlet and Violet book in the games. I think it's it's the book that you get, and it's like a picture of it there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So this can't be like a thing that they just show off and they just forget about in the upcoming game or in the game, and it has to be some sort of event that will probably come in the game. They'll probably mention it on Pokemon Day, and it obviously is a gorilla. You can definitely tell it is. Literally, Harambe literally looks like it. Yeah. So this is very bizarre. This has to be the last mythical that they're gonna do for the game, because there's not gonna be any more content after this.
I would think not, right? You would expect there not to be the case. But Cam, what do you think about it? What are your thoughts?
I'm really excited that we're going to get another mythical, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but Gen 8 has been the first gen since 2 to only give us only one mythical. And I'm sure there's reasonings for that, most likely due to like the virus or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the only thing I'm not looking forward to is that we're getting another mythical, and it's like another monkey, because we just got Zarud last generation. We're gonna get if we are getting a like gorilla mythical, we're gonna get another monkey mythical, and I'm like, that sucks, because there's a bunch of other stuff you guys can base it off of. But either way, it's new Pokemon. I can't really get mad about a new Pokemon.
Very true.
One thing I am confused about is that I don't know if it's going to be coming in Scarlet and Violet. I feel like they're going to pull a Hoopa, Volcanion, Miltank situation.
Yeah, like a Munchlax situation as well, right? Like
yeah.
Where they hint at it in a previous game, and they announce it in a previous game, but it doesn't actually show up, or it shows up in maybe the movie, but then it's not in that. It's more like a hint towards the next thing. Because isn't that what Mythicals are anyways, right? Yeah, like
I always thought as Mythicals just advertisement for. Well, the movies are for advertisement for the Pokemon, like Mythicals, basically. It's just merchandise, really, in my eyes.
But yeah, it is a bit strange, though, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing that I fear is that they did such a good job with the Pecharunt event.
Yeah,
I don't want them to revert back to old habits and make this just a mystery gift. If the next game is like a Gold and Silver remake, or a Bronze or Black and White 3, I don't want them to be like, oh, new mythical, you can get it as a pre-order bonus, or like as the, you know how they used to do like the pre-order mystery gift things. I don't want that to be the case. I refuse. I hate that idea. I remember they did that back in Black and White 2, when you can get Genesect at launch for a little bit. And later on with like the Torchic for X and Y and Beldum for Oras. I just don't want that at all.
I want
I really hope that in the next game we get like to go to some crazy jungle area, or it shows up and causes havoc and you have to be the ones to like catch it. I want something like that. I refuse to have a just mystery gift, no lore. Watch the movie if you want some context as to what this thing is, and moving on to the next game. Like, that's so boring to me. So
I agree.
That's really where I am. I'm excited for it because it's another mythical, but I'm also like, just like, please give us an event for it. No more mystery gifts. I feel like Pecharunt, the positive reception with Pecharunt should be an indicator to Game Freak that we as fans are done with mystery gifts. We just want in-game events again, because those are cool.
Yeah, true.
And they even went as far as to get, like, even though they kind of had to, but with BSP, they gave us all the in-game events, and people were cool. We were happy with that because they weren't mystery gifts now. We got to experience the Arceus event. We got to do the Shaman event, Darkrai event, I guess you could say the Regigigas one. But like, we got to do all of those.
True.
And that was really fun. And they technically, I guess you can say they technically brought that back with Legends, because the Darkrai one was like, you have to have save data for, what was it?
Yeah, you have to like save data for BDSP, I'm guessing, and then you can do, but it's still an event you have to do in the game to go catch it. You know, it's like the best part is like, as long as it's like a gameplay thing to get it, and it's not just a code you type in, that's what I prefer about it, right? Like, that's the part that makes it more fun and interesting.
Definitely.
And I hope they just stick to that. I hope they just don't like deviate away from that.
Yeah, they've literally just given us lore anyway in the game, like with the book. Like, ooh, okay, what's this mysterious Pokemon? They have to add more to that. You know, they can't just give us a code and just give us the Pokemon, and the lore is basically in the movie as it's featured in the Pokemon in the movie. And like, no, I don't want that.
But
I want it in the game.
I wonder if they will, or if they'll go back to like the standard way they're doing things. Like, I wonder. I really do. I am very curious to know how they're going to go about it, because when you think about like really anything up until Pecharunt, it has been the most like everything on the Switch, and I would even say the 3DS, all those were like events that were, you know, here's a code, have fun, right? That's it. There's nothing more to it. But like, this is the first time in a long time that they've actually made the mythical event for a brand new mythical interesting and unique and fun, right? But I wonder, because of this Pokemon, this one being probably not even in Scarlet and Violet, like, I don't expect that thing to show up in Scarlet and Violet. That's the thing.
Me either.
It might, based on like what Rillaku said, because he implied it for this game. He said that it hasn't been revealed for this game. So it makes me wonder, is it maybe something that they won't release in this game, or they'll delay, or what the whole plan is for this whole Pokemon, like if it exists at all to start with. But based on the fact that Riddler said it and kind of brought up that it should exist, it probably will exist in some form or shape. But I just wonder how they're going to go about it. Like, I'm very curious to know what's going to be the deal with this thing.
I'm even trying to think where in Paldea. I doubt they're gonna do Kitakami, because Kitakami I feel like is already nice and neat. Like,
Yeah.
it would be cool for an event if you like it's causing havoc around Paldea and Kieran and Carmine get to show up with you, and they're the ones helping you solve an issue that's happening in your region versus you going to their hometown to help them. Like,
Oh, yeah. True.
like, and plus, what if this gorilla thing is like a new ruinous Pokemon, like a ruinous master or something like that, and
Ooh, I like that.
That could be
yeah,
cool.
it's like causing havoc somewhere. You have to be the one to stop it, and Kieran and Carmine come to help you. Like, they can still do something really unique with this versus just a mystery gift.
True. They can do a lot with
Yeah.
it, but it is Game Freak we're talking about, you know?
Yes.
It's Pokemon Company. So you never know. It's always it's always a risk. That they'll just drop the ball on it, to be honest. But
Plus,
we'll see.
the only thing I'm like most worried about is that if this thing were to exist, I feel like it would be in the game's code at somewhere. And granted, they
Yeah.
can add it in. Like, they can add it in. Like with Petrine, we already knew about it because it was in the game's code.
Yeah.
But for this, it could just be a little surprise that
True.
they purposefully removed from the game's code.
Could
Like,
be. It's got to be the right that. It's either something that was planned or something that, like, you know, that's just not in the code. But it's like not often that they do that, though. Oftentimes it is always in the patches and
Left
stuff like that,
in,
the updates.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure, to be
Well,
honest. Like, I wonder.
one
I'm just
thing-
very curious to see where, like, if it's going to be in there or not. But I guess we'll know on Pokemon Day, right? So
Yeah.
One thing I will say, remember how we were just talking about how if we knew it would be in the game's code. And there are
Yep.
several things that Ku told us. Like, for example, Crawdon and Rhydon were supposed to get terrestrial forms or a terrestrialized state.
right,
All
stuff that
we
was like
have is-
removed, right? Like things that
Yeah.
weren't included. Because that makes me.
Yeah,
That's
Ku-
like the thing that just gives hopium and copium to like the people that want a third DLC, right? Like that's like the thing. I don't want to give them any hope because I don't expect a third DLC.
Yeah.
But you're right. There are things that are probably missing or things that maybe were planned but were removed. This monkey could be one of them. Like, this could
Yeah.
be originally a planned thing that was going to be in there, but then, you know, down the line somewhere, that whole plan changed and they just scrapped it.
Somewhere, basically, this gorilla should exist because all the other Pokemon on that page exists in the game.
Yeah.
So this
Flamingos,
gorilla had to
no,
exist somewhere in the code, or that it was a fort, or it was created before the game, or after. It's a very, very interesting situation.
I don't know. It's strange because you would think if they weren't going to include it, they would have at least removed it from that image. So it would give, like, you know, unless it's such an afterthought that they don't even think about it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. But yeah, you guys say
Maybe they
something.
forgot, you know?
It is. I was going to say it is a mythical, and they can go like it could be the exact same situation with Petronet, because before Ku showed us the image, before we saw the data mine and like the whole like art of it that was still left in the game's code, we had no idea that little like pink peach thing at the shop was a Pokemon. We just thought it was just a cosmetic thing. It could be the exact same situation with this book where we see this gorilla here and we're like, oh, that's crazy. They just left that in here. Maybe it was intentional. Maybe it's somewhere in Area 0. Like,
true. It also makes me think about, wasn't there like 2 items, 2 stones in the games that never been used? Like, those items have never actually been used at all. So like, that makes me wonder, like, is this like one of the things where there's gonna be some kind of event, there's gonna be a reason for you to use these items or for them to appear? Or is this a situation where it's just stuff that maybe was planned or maybe in development, things changed and it's never actually gonna, see the light of day realistically? It's just like a situation where it's like, we'll have to wait and see, I guess, right? Like, we'll have to wait and see if they do something with it. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I was going to say, we do know as of now, this is probably the Pokemon game that has the most cut content. We know that we were going to get a lot more regional forms, but that like Ku said that there's like way too many things that were going on at once with this game that they had to cut one thing to have the other thing happen. I believe he said it was either Paradox Pokemon that like they cut regionals so they can include Paradox Pokemon because like they didn't want too many similar concepts happening. Like Paradox Pokemon look like they could pass as regional forms, at least the past ones do.
Yeah, I
So
see that.
yeah, so he said that like a lot of things had to be cut, and then we knew that like who was it? Mewtwo was going to get like a mightiest Pokemon was going to get a terrestrial form that they ended up cutting that. We know that possibly the starters were going to get a terrestrial form that got cut, or terrestrial forms in general just got cut from the game. And now we know that Crowdon and Rhydon were supposed to get forms, and I'm pretty sure that's what those 2 stones are for, and that got cut. So like we were gonna have a Mega Evolution Gigantamax scenario happening with terrestrial forms. That's not happening because that had to get cut. Like this game had a bunch of features that just got cut. I'm not saying the Mythical is one of them. I'm just saying that this game has a bunch of like cool concepts that they had to cut just to make other ones work, like Paradox Pokemon, the conversion forms and things like that. And it's sad, but it had to happen. This game had a lot of stuff going on at once with paradoxes, conversions, the 2 regional regional variants we did get, and terrestrial, like the terrestrial forms in general, like terrestrialization in general. A lot of they introduced a lot of stuff, and then we still got terrestrial forms with Ogerpon and Terapagos. Like it was a lot of crazy stuff happening. That like it kind of, it's as sad as it is, it kind of makes sense why so many things got cut. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about.
It kind of is, to be honest, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a weird situation with this whole thing because, again, could be cut content, could be actual thing. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't really know. Is there anything else you guys want to chime in on this one, or should we move on to the second topic of this?
What are these stones? I know you mentioned the stones. They like, are they one of them like Scarlet and one of them is Violet? I guess.
Kind of. One was like orangish, one was purplish, kind of. Like, that's like the 2 stones that were in the game, which we assumed those were going to be used for like Koraidon or Rhydon to make them like some special forms of them, but that never ended up happening. So that's just pretty much as much as we, that's just pretty much as much as we know. You know, it's like this is as much as we know.
Oh my goodness! Why Game Freak? Why did you cut this?
Yeah, I think even Coop hinted at it happening before it got cut, and he kind of just didn't elaborate on it any further.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird situation, really. But I'm not going to question it much. It is what it is. That's where I'm going to like leave that one at. But I guess we can move on to the second topic, which is I guess like a bit of a different one, like a bit of a change of pace. Which is going to be about, well, I'm going to start this off with a tweet that I made, and I'm going to talk about a bit of everything, but I'm going to start off with the first thing, which is, I tweeted out saying, which, I mean, again, it might piss some people off what I said, but I said, unpopular opinion, I think ILCA can make a better Pokemon game than Game Freak if they were given the freedom to do whatever they want creatively and aren't hindered by the rules of a Pokemon remake game. Now, quickly, if you guys do not know what ILCA is the company that made Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. For anybody that's watching this that doesn't know, now you know. And basically my point is, and the point I was trying to make with that tweet, and it comes from the fact that I saw some of the work that ILCA has done on other stuff, and I realized they can do good shit if they're given the freedom to do it. If they're given more time and resources and like, you know, aren't like limited by a set standard of things that they have to like follow. And what I mean by this is that they actually worked on a game called One Piece Odyssey. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen One Piece Odyssey. A friend, actually, shout out to Novo Jiro, he actually gifted me the game today, so I'll be playing it now myself to try it out and see what it's like. But I watched some gameplay of it, I watched some of the graphics of it. It has very much the style of, like, Dragon Quest XI. So if you've seen Dragon Quest XI, you'll see that game. It's a very similar style. It's got the anime style, right? Like the video game anime style, which some people love, some people hate. I think it looks good. I think it looks better than Scarlet and Violet in terms of, like, actual like textures and fidelity and stuff. Of course, every game, if you're looking for issues, you're gonna find issues. You know what I mean? If you're intentionally going with the goal of finding something wrong, you're gonna find something wrong. But in terms of what I saw from like One Piece Odyssey, it looks fantastic. And it's made by ILCA, by the way. Like, it's a fully made game by ILCA. The only thing that like they didn't do was publish the game. It's just published by Bandai Namco, but they were the ones who made the whole game. And what I wanted to say with that was that if you play BDSP, and if you really look at BDSP, BDSP is a faithful remake. Like, it is as faithful as you can get to a Diamond and Pearl remake. Like, they literally made it as faithful as they could with very, very, very minor changes. Like you mentioned earlier, like the events and stuff. Like, the events are not like tied to a mystery gift item. Instead, they're just part of the game, right? You know, and pretty much everybody can experience them for the most part. I think there was still some. I think maybe the Oak's letter was the only one that I remember. Like, maybe they had to give out an actual item for it. Nonetheless,
it was that. It was that in the Darkrai one because I can't do that.
But then the legendaries are all available in Ramanas Park, right? Like in Ramanas Park, you have all the legendaries. That's kind of what I was thinking of. But what I'm trying to say, the whole point I'm trying to make, okay, the point I'm trying to get to is that no matter what way you twist it, no matter what way you look at it, like BDSP was a faithful remake. So I don't know what people wanted when they expected it. Was it like different graphics? Is that what pissed people off? Was it something else? Like, I don't know. Like, that's like something.
They wanted.
I think it was the bugs that pissed people off, in my opinion.
Yeah, but Pokemon is like that's the thing we have to remember. Pokemon has always had bugs. No Pokemon game comes without a massive amount of bugs. But yeah, what are you saying, Kevin?
They wanted a retelling because Oraz kind of set the standard for what a remake should be. Like they incorporated Mega Evolution into it. At the time, they even gave us like some. We know that AZ visited Hoenn at some point. The whole Rayquaza Delta episode subplot, they wanted something like that. And unfortunately, and I guess the only reason why we didn't get stuff like that is because Legends Arceus was that, you know, it was the remake sort of thing, the true Gen 4 love letter in a sense. So BDSP kind of felt like something to hold you over until that game came out,
which is weird because that's the better selling one. It's the one that sold more, and it's the one that was the remake game, right? It's the one that they, I guess the issue with it is simply that it didn't do what Oraz did, right? Which was, I guess, recreate that journey from Ruby and Sapphire, but improve upon it and add more elements to it. Correct? Yeah. Like, I guess that's where we put it.
It's the better selling game because it was 2 games. And
that's true. That too, but also keep in mind it does carry a bigger name as well, right? Like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, like Diamond Pearl, like they are like that just carries enough weight in its, just in the name. Which does help those games as well. Whereas Legends Arceus was a single game. That's one first part. It's a single game. Second part, it was a whole new thing. There was a whole new thing they were trying. So sales wise, there's a bit of a discrepancy there, right?
If they called it like Pokemon Titanium, watch the numbers.
True.
But if they added like more platinum content in the game, then it would have.
Yeah, I think that would have given it a boost. But at the end of the day, like, I think like the biggest issue I think for most people with that game is the looks of the game. I'm gonna be real. I think it's just how the game looks. I think a lot of people just hated the looks of that game. But that's the thing. The looks of the game were faithful to the originals. They tried to emulate that style, and I think that's what they had to do. I think that they were kind of shoehorned into doing that. I think like when they were working on this, they were probably limited in what they like. I think they pretty much what happened is they were told remake Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. They probably had somebody from the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, somebody who's
it was Masuda.
There you go. It was Masuda. So he probably overlooked it and limited the scope of what they could do. Because their job was just to remake
Copy and paste it,
Exactly.
Copy and paste. Yeah, but just make it look more shinier, glossier, and more chibier, you could say. But it was already chibi, but less pixely and, basically.
Yeah, like basically just make it 3D. Make it like a 3D version of Diamond and Pearl. But don't change too much. Like, keep it faithful. And I don't know if maybe that's like a fear they had because of the negative response from people on them changing things in other games of Pokemon, like previous games, right? Like changes that were made like maybe in Let's Go, because Let's Go was way more, with like the catching mechanic and stuff. Like I think what happens is that they misinterpret some of like people's opinions, like, and then just go full throttle in the other direction. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which kind of harms the games in the long run. At least that's the way I view it. But yeah, what do you think, Cam?
I was gonna say, you can tell BDSP, and I'm not saying this as an insult, I'm saying this as like somebody being like genuine in like game development. You can tell that BDSP was made quickly. If you go back to 2018, Masuda said that Let's Go was going to be his last game. Like he was like after this, I'm done directing Pokemon games. I got a promotion. I'm gonna move up to head of decision making in a Pokemon company. I would no longer be affiliated with Game Freak. I will only be with the Pokemon company. And after that, we were like, okay, Masada, because he was training Omori to take his place from Sword and Shield onwards. So then you're like, okay, no more Masada. We only have Omori now, and like Omori is the lead of Team A. Then we got the Team B team, and when Sword and Shield came out, that was Team A's project. Team B's project was Legends, and at some point, they're like, maybe I don't know, are people going to really be okay with Legends as a Gen 4 game? Some people might not know what Gen 4 is,
so
because
they had to rush and get somebody to they had to rush and get something Gen 4 related made. I guess because like Legends at the end of the day was a kind of a test run for a fully open world
Scarlet.
Pokemon game, right? Exactly. Yeah. It was like testing out those features and seeing how it would work. I don't know. It's a weird situation, man. It's a weird situation.
Yeah. And like at some point they're like, oh, we need to call well, Omori, you're busy on Scarlet and Violet. I forgot who the director of Team B is, but like, you're busy on Legends, so we kind of don't have anybody to take over right now. I know. Let's call ILCA, who makes our models for Pokemon Home, because they made models. I think they helped make Nier Automata from Square Enix, and they're also working on that One Piece game. Maybe we can call them and ask them, hey, do you guys want to put together a quick video game? And Ilka's probably like, oh sure, but we don't really know the first thing about making a Pokemon game. Do you have somebody that can maybe come over and help us? They're like, we got just a guy. And they hit up Masada, and they're like, hey Masada, we know you aren't directing Pokemon games anymore. Let's Go is your last work, but we kind of need your help for like a faithful Gen 4 remake. And Masada was like, say no less, I'll be on my way. And that's when he went to Ilka. He came out of retirement briefly and was like, all right, I'm going to help you guys put together this game. Here's the rule. We're going to make it 1-for-1 because this is your first Pokemon project. I don't want to give you guys a huge workload. So we're just going to remake this game faithfully. We're going to remake it faithfully. We're going to add some new features, but we're going to remake this game faithfully because, again, you guys don't have the same experience as we at Game Freak do managing a monster catching RPG. So I'm just going to show you guys, give you guys like the rundown, give you guys here's what we do. And once this is all said and done, once this game sells and we get those numbers in, we might contact you guys for another game in the future. But for now, maybe this next thing will be more ambitious. But for now, we're going to start off with something small and simple. So he has like a cartridge of like Gen 4, and he's like, play this game, but I want you to remake it from the ground up, from every NPC. Granted, I'm going to have you add a new ones, but from every NPC, every Pokemon, even all the things that you think might be a glitch, I want you to put that in this game. And that's how BDSP was made. And he's like, by the way, you guys got a year to do it. They're like, bet.
I see. Okay, it's funny to put it like that, but I don't see that like necessarily being the exact way it would have gone. Of course, you know, you can only guess exactly what happens.
Yeah.
But like the fact that they made it in Unity, for example, which is a bit strange because it's not like the engine you'd expect Pokemon games to be made in.
Yeah, it's
because that's the thing, because they're not used to making it like in other stuff, right? Like it's not like they don't. Sorry, rather they're not used to using the Pokemon engine, whatever Pokemon uses for their games. That's not like their platform that they work on to begin with. So they had to just make it. I'm pretty sure that they did rush it and then just had to make it as quickly as possible. But I feel like it wasn't that Masuda, you know, was like, I feel like, he directed it and stuff, but I feel like, it's because of the rush, they had to make a simple remake, but the fact that, like, they went for the art style they went for is a bit surprising still, because if you think about it, if we're going to be honest here, they have 3D models, like full-scale 3D models of all the characters in the game. Like, you see them in battles. Like, the battle models are the 3D version, so it's a bit bizarre that they didn't go fully that direction. Like I don't know. It feels to me, like, I'm going to be real with you, it feels to me personally like one of Masuda's delusions in terms of what he thinks a Pokemon game should be like. I feel like it's a delusional, like a delusional idea he had where it's like, oh, it needs to be faithful. It needs to be faithful. It needs to look exactly the same as it did back then. So like, I feel to me like it's more like this thing where like he decided like it needs to be a straight up 1-to-1 remake. Because some of the decisions they made probably took more time to do and more effort to do than if they had just gone the other direction with it. You know what I mean? Like, some of the decisions they made just make no sense.
Yeah. I hate it. I hate it. And like, Suba, you might agree as an artist, but I hate it that when they revealed the official art for the remake characters to be DSP, they were all just like very ugly renders instead of like new
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember
art.
that.
It
Oh
was so bad.
yeah, I
I
remember
wanted
that
to see
too.
them get I wanted to
Uh,
see them get like new designs like we got in the previous games, but
Yeah.
instead they all just got renders and no new art. It sucked to see.
Oh jeez, I don't know, but I think like at the end of the day, the kind of point that I wanted to make with that tweet and the point I wanted to make about Ilka is that I've seen proof now of what they can do, right, with the One Piece game and stuff, and that's if they're given enough time. Like I want to look it up actually, like One Piece Odyssey
It's an awesome game.
development time. Like I'm curious how long it took. So let's see. Outside of the story of the real world, One Piece Odyssey was announced on March 28th, 2022, but in Dev Diary video released on June 30th, 2022, One Piece Odyssey producer Katsuaki Suzuki states that the development had begun about 5 years earlier, and the story was half complete by 3 years prior. So,
A long time. Quite a
so
bit
that's
of
but that's the
time.
story. Remember, that's the story.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily include like that doesn't necessarily include development time on certain things.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
okay,
Like
yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
necessarily include every aspect of development.
Everything. Yeah.
But it just that's just literally is to start with what it says right here. Like that by the time 5 years ago they'd already written the story aspects of it. So that doesn't include like of course the full development time of the game. But it is interesting. So here's like the full post about it. One Piece Odyssey began development 5 years prior to its public reveal in 2022. The game's producer gave a video interview when the game was announced, discussing the inception of the project and Oda's involvement. So Oda is the guy who writes One Piece. Around 3 years prior to the game's public reveal, Oda contributed designs for Adio and different animals. And the art team at ILCA developed the setting and further artwork based on the Oda story and the world. The game's soundtrack then was composed by Motoi Sakaruba, known for the musical works of other games like the Dark Souls series. But basically, within 5 years worth of time. So that's, keep in mind, again, not that full time is used for game development. The initial maybe 2 years, first 2 years, could just be the concept, right? Like just literally putting the concept of the game together, and the concept of the game being like created in some form or shape. But they had 5 years of time to work on this. Like the concept began 5 years ago, but within those 5 years, maybe 3 of those were used for actual game development, which is still a solid amount of time, okay, for a game that came out pretty solid. Which then makes me wonder, imagine if you gave ILCA more time. Imagine if you gave ILCA the freedom to make something more interesting.
Yeah.
Like I feel like with this, they had more freedom. They had more, like, you know, they literally had the creator Oda come through and make brand new concepts and IDs and characters and monsters to be included, you know, and considered real as part of the actual world. So like imagine if Pokemon had that, you know, if Ilka had that freedom with Pokemon and freedom with like a Pokemon, you know, game that's much more large in scale. Because remember, this Odyssey game is actually a turn-based game. It is an RPG. It's not like an action combat game. It's a turn-based game. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say with my whole tweet and everything is that I feel like hating on Ilka is bizarre because at the end of the day, they can only do as much as they can with what they're provided and what they're allowed to do by Pokemon Company, right? Because the Pokemon Company is very strict about the shit that they do.
Yeah.
They're not like, they're not going to let like everything slide. They're not going to be cool with every decision that like, you know, you want to make or changes. Like changes is the biggest thing, right? Like they're not going to be okay with changes being made. Like they want, because at the end of the day, Pokemon, a merchandising beast, they have specific schedules set for everything that needs to go out at this amount of time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to allow for a lot of wiggle room there, right? They're not going to allow for a lot of changes or for you to do a lot with their IP. They're going to be very strict about it. So I feel like if they were just given the time, I think they could have made a great game. Which I guess is a good segue to a game that has caused some problems and some stirring up of emotions, which is going to be none else than Palworld. So, yeah. Have we all played Palworld? I'm guessing all of you guys have played it, right?
Yes,
Yep.
I have.
Yeah. All right.
I
So,
have.
I loved it.
I guess just give me a very short TLDR, thoughts / review of the game. What you think about it, like from your experience, and I'll tell mine as well. But what do you think, for example, Cam, like your experience of the game, like just a short little TLDR review, if you want to put it that way.
But all right, I guess my short TLDR is that it scratches an itch for me that kind of it was completely. I guess Legends Arceus created this like feeling of like cool exploration and like
Mhm.
catching mechanic that Scarlet and Violet took away. And I'm
Yep.
I'm only going to assume that it did that because it's like a new generation, and also Scarlet and Violet was made like it had longer dev time than Legends did, so
Yep.
they already had like everything figured out. But it took away that feeling, that like catching mechanic that I loved so much
Yeah.
from Legends. And then when I opened up Palworld and like I got behind the crafting and seeing the monsters, it gave me the feeling of a new generation, minus like the guns and stuff. But it gave me the feeling of a new generation. And like they even got the backstrike mechanic and like all the like catching mechanic from Legends that I missed so much, that I just got addicted to like running around and crafting the orbs and catching all these pals and things like that, because it gave me that same excitement that Legends did, and it's honestly really fun because of that. So that's my quick TLDR.
Alrighty. And Suba, what do you feel about it?
I think it's a great game. The thing is, it obviously, it's just like what Cam said, it drew me back just remembering Legends Arceus. With Legends Arceus, it didn't feel like a golf course. That's what made me love it so much. But with Sword and Shield, just golf course everywhere. You know, just empty, not enough foliage. But with this game, Palworld has enough foliage, in my opinion, and doesn't feel golf course. It's not a golf course. That's
Okay.
why I think about it. So yes, I like, and also the catching mechanic is really nice as well. And obviously the monsters are pretty cool as well. But it obviously makes me feel like, I wish Pokemon could do this. But it don't have to be crafting. I think the crafting is really good in this game. But having the crafting in Pokemon makes it a bit odd. But have a tiny little bit. Legends Arceus did it perfectly with the crafting and stuff. I think it
It
had
did.
crafting. It had a little bit. Yeah, not too much. It wasn't like Minecraft, but it was
Yeah.
just enough. But Power World had a lot of that as well, but not. I think Pokemon does need a tiny bit more of that in the current games, because Scarlet and Violet, there is no crafting, there isn't hardly anything.
The,
But
the
with
closest
Power World,
thing,
it did it perfect. Well, almost
the,
perfectly.
the
A
closest
bit over it. Yeah,
yeah, the closest thing to crafting we have in Scarlet and Violet is the TM thing, and
yeah.
that
Yeah. True.
I never even use that really.
No, me neither.
But no.
It's like it's not like it's a necessity for
No.
for like crafting to be a thing. But it's like if you can implement it in a good way where it's not tedious, I think it's a bonus.
Yes.
But I guess yeah. So that's your thoughts on it then, like just
Yeah,
TLDR thoughts.
basically.
All right. Okay, so I guess my thoughts then, as a final one here before we get into some of the more heavy topics in regards to Palworld. I think it's a fun game. Okay, like I think it's a genuinely fun game. It's like it's a weird thing, but like it's like I am the kind of person who I don't really play much Pokemon outside of work, outside of making videos. I don't really play much Pokemon. I tend to just only really do it when I have to like do it, because like you know, you get burnt out if you play too much. Palworld,
Yeah.
I wanted to keep playing even when I wasn't streaming and stuff. Like I kept playing the game off stream, which is something I don't do. I kept playing it off like when I wasn't recording, which is not something I often do. Which is
Draws you back.
Exactly.
That's what I like about it. Yeah.
It's very addictive. And I think the addictiveness of it is in the mechanics of the game, not like the world per se. I'm gonna be real. I think the world is kind of whatever. The map,
kind of-
the map is like, it's cool that you have the towers and everything, but like, you know, it's not like there's like much to do there either.
It's
Necessarily.
too open. Yeah,
It's not that it's too open. It's not that it's too open. It's just that there's not really much there. There are barely like I know
Yeah.
there's like some small villages here and there, but like it's very how would you
Yeah.
put it? It's like very wish-washy. It doesn't really
Too
matter.
wilderness. There's not enough like big like
No, there's not. Let's
towns
put it like this.
or
There's
anything.
not a lot of
Yeah.
personality to the actual world itself. It's relatively empty. The thing that makes it interesting, though, is the interactions of all the pals and them like doing things and fighting each other and living in the world. And I think again, the biggest thing for me in this game is the mechanics. When I play Pokemon, it can be very boring whenever you have to go into a turn-based match, and like it just takes a while for things to happen, and just the animations. It's just a lot of this tedious shit that it feels like it wastes your time. I feel like Palworld doesn't waste your time, even though it technically does, because you're forced to do all the crafting and stuff, but that's the game. That's the actual fundamental part of the game. And I guess you could argue the same thing about like, oh, but Pokemon is those loading animations and those turn-based battles. Nothing wrong with it. I think like Pokemon is a great turn-based franchise. But I loved what they did in Legends, where like you can move around while in the battle, right? Like remember, like that was like the sickest thing for me about Legends, is that you can battle a Pokemon, but you can still move around in the world while you're doing that. I hate that they removed that in Scarlet and Violet. I didn't understand. I was like, why would you remove this? This is ridiculous. And that's the thing I feel like I also get from Palworld. Like, I find how we all compare it to Legends. But that's the thing I think that I also get out of Palworld is the fact that I get to move around at the same time. And it's like the game incentivizes you to go out and catch the same pal all over again, like multiple times, to get higher catch rate, more efficiency, etc. It also encourages you to do crafting. It encourages you to build a little base and do all this kind of stuff. Because at the end of the day, it is a survival game. It's not really a monster, taming game. It's not a monster tame. It's not an RPG necessarily. It's a survival game, right? Like a la Rust or Ark, Survival Evolved. It's one of those type of games. And I think that's the thing. It's just that it took those elements and elements of Pokemon and kind of smashed them together and made something really cool out of it. I think that's what the game did. And that's what I like about it. It's like that it made those things that normally I think are tedious, like crafting, it made them fun because it felt like I was always progressing. Like that feeling of progression. Like you feel like you're going forward. And the feeling of failure was really cool in the game as well. Like you could die to one of the bosses easily. You could easily lose. And there's always this kind of fear, like, shit, will I get attacked by the raids today? Am I strong enough to take on the first tower? Probably not. You know what I mean? It's just the whole gameplay loop and the way it feels.
Freedom.
The gameplay, not even the freedom. Actually, the game isn't as free as you think. Like the world is open, but the game itself, you are locked in to follow the game's specific path of what things you need to unlock in your crafting table and stuff like that. You are locked into a path. It's not as free as you think. If freedom would be to be you can do whatever you want. You don't need to have this thing to craft this thing. You can just make everything all at once. That's full-on freedom. This game still limits you, and it has to. I think it's good that it does, because it puts you into this path you have to follow, with the crafting and stuff. And I think it's good because it incentivizes, because you're like, shit, I caught this one pal, but I don't have this thing that is needed on this pal to make him into a gun or make him into a weapon or use him in this specific way. Like, for example, if you want to ride on one of your pals, you have to get that specific thing in the skill tree or whatever it's called, like the talent thingy. You have to unlock that specific crafting table to craft that specific item, which you need to then unlock. And it's like that path you have to take, that little by little unlocking small things, little by little.
You have to catch the pal first to get that item.
But that's the thing. It's all these elements. What I'm trying to say is all these elements together make for a really fun gameplay loop, and also gives you always something to work towards, right? Whereas in Pokemon, when you think about Pokemon, it's really just you're out on a journey, follow this set path we have for you, do these gyms, etc., 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 right? That's it. And the gameplay loop is always the same. There's no actual variety in it, or anything you do besides hey, guess what? Go to the next gym. Oh, you caught a bunch of Pokemon, do a bunch of battles, go on to the next gym, do a bunch of battles, go on to the next gym. It's a very standard thing with Pokemon. But in this game, I feel like there's the same thing, right? Your goal at the end of the day is to defeat all the bosses, right? That's the end goal of the game. But to get there, you have to do so much other shit, and so many more things can happen. Like, if you decide to build your base in a totally different place than someone else, you'll have a way different experience than than I have, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people build their base in the beginning area. I didn't. I built it somewhere further away. You know what happened? Because I did that there, I found totally different pals that were totally different than the ones that you find in the starting area, and I got a totally different experience than most other people. And so that's the thing. If you play Pokemon, all of us will pretty much have the same experience. And as opposed to Legends Arceus, I feel like in this game, the pals, the actual interaction they have with the world and stuff is way more interesting. The stuff they do, where they're located, they do a lot more. They can attack your base. They can team up with a bigger boss to attack the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And just I think even the concept of building a base, I've always wished for Game Freak to take the initiative to kind of bring secret bases into the fold. Bring in secret bases. Make secret bases a staple of Pokemon. Make it so that if they ever do another Legends game, I think they need to make secret bases a part of it. Like a place that we call home, or a place that it's kind of like our base of operation, right? Like where we do our missions. That's we can, decorate it, do stuff with it. And, I just wish we had something like that, but we don't. And that's my opinion on Palworld. I think it's basically got a really fun, addictive gameplay loop, but I don't think as a game that it has staying power going into the future. I think it's a game which, like, it's done something cool right now, but I don't expect it to do much going forward. I think that's about it.
Yeah. They did say they plan to add more pals and more islands and things like that, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but
Yeah.
like, and something you mentioned with the old crafting mechanic. It's cool that the game gives you so many things to work towards, and I think that's the thing that keeps me engaged. Is that
Yeah.
I want to ride this bird. I gotta craft the thing for it. I want to ride this one, but this like this deer pod, the one that looks like Cobalion. I want to ride him. Oh, I have to make a what's it called, like a satchel thing, something like that, to ride on him.
Yeah.
And like you catch him, you have to go and get the iron ignots and the stones and the wood
Yeah.
and the leather and all that, and that grinding towards that, and then the payoff at the end. And since like you have so many options, like I heard that there are certain pals where if you get their items, you can send out essentially 2 at the same time, so it's like a boss or something. I'm like, yo, that's really cool. So
Yep.
these individual goals to help you get there, and also even though the world is empty, there are some places that look really good. Like, I don't know if you've been to the volcano area yet or the ice area. They look super good. And then there's that like giant tree in the background that I think is like it's like currently inaccessible now. But like if you like seeing all these things that they have planned, and then the fact that they plan to improve upon that later on, it's really cool. And again, it's that Legends Arceus itch that I want Pokemon to do again, but they haven't done it. And I really hope that, since, like I said, Legends was made after Scarlet and Violet in terms of development time, I really hope that they see the positive reception from Legends and Palworld, and hopefully Generation 10, or even the big game that's coming out like this year or next year or whatever. Hopefully it has that Legends Arceus mechanic, because they can do both. Like, we can have the Legends Arceus catching mechanics and dodging and rolling and still have the standard like RPG elements. We don't need the, like, the styles were cool, but we don't need the like the damage styles, like the agile swift. We don't need that. We can have both, and I feel like that's something Game Freak can do if they want to, but they're just like afraid to, and I don't understand why, because it's a really cool mechanic. Like, imagine how fun people would be, like how fun Legends, or not Legends, Scarlet and Violet would be if we had that catching mechanic from Legends combined with the co-op feature from Scarlet and Violet.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, seriously, like, think about think about that feature as a whole, like the catching mechanic feature, and like what more they could have done with it than what they actually did. Like, think about like how Palworld works with the catching mechanic when you throw it and like the loading bar thingy happens. Like, I love that. I love like when you like you see like the loading bar, and the fact that you can like go around and spam balls and shit, like, and as many things as you want to. And that it makes you part of the battle. Like, it makes you take part in it. It's not just like, you know, oh, cool, like I click a button and monster does XYZ. It's like, it makes you part of the whole thing. And I know that kind of comes with the whole like using bows and arrows and guns and stuff, but guns are really like end game anyways. For the most part, you're using bows and like, you know, that's really it. You're usually mostly bows in the beginning of the game for the most part. And then relying on your pals to do the other work, right? Like, you're relying on your pals. You can maybe even turn your pals into weapons. So like, of course, Pokemon will never turn like the Pokemon into weapons, but like, just adding that feeling of like mobility, being able to move around, and like, again, I feel like Pokemon wastes our time a lot. Like, I feel like it wastes my time loading into these animations and waiting for like the battle shit to come up. Like, no, make it more seamless. Make it feel like it all like runs smoothly. Like, I hate the feeling that it has to like this, it has this like such a slowed down pace. And like, that's what makes it so boring and tedious to replay. Like, I can start up a new world, Palworld, like, you know, save file right now, and I enjoy it as much as I enjoyed my first one. With Pokemon, I feel like I replayed Pokemon so many times. If I had to replay Scarlet and Violet again, I don't know what I would do to myself. Like, I would not be able to handle it again. And I've played it like 15 times by now. And I wouldn't be able to do that again, because it is so tedious. Just having to like do the battles becomes tedious, which is weird, because that's supposed to be the fun part of Pokemon, but it's like all these small things that slow it down and make it like, unfun, right? Because you're always stuck in the static thing. The camera really does its own panning and stuff. And when they changed that in Legends, I was so happy. I was so happy. When in Legends, you can walk around, move around, like have some interaction with the world. Imagine if they did that, and instead of us having to like go, you know, in like the battle menu to go like press the ball option, instead like we could just throw it. Just throw it right at him. You know what I mean? Whatever we feel like. And as soon as like we see his HP's down a little bit, just throw the ball. Don't even do the animation for like, you know, the doot, 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 doot. Let that just happen in the distance. Don't have like us locked in watching it happen. Like instead just let it be a thing. Just same thing. Maybe do like literally copy Palworld. Like just copy Palworld. Steal that whole design they have of showing the percentage and I'll be happy. Yeah. Because that shit's cool. I like it.
Or do like a little mini game while you throw the ball at the Pokemon. There's a little mini game. You have to get it onto like the red bar, and it's
dude, maybe like a loading bar, and you have to time it. Otherwise, like it doesn't. Like, oh yeah, dude, that would be sick.
3 times. That'd be really fun. Yeah.
Like, do something to make it more interesting. It's like Pokemon is too safe. It's like, and I know some people will be like, no, but I want my Pokemon the same way, and that's fine. And that's fine. But then don't cry if Pokemon is always the same. That's the problem. People ask for something different, but then when they do something different, they get pissed off. Legends was sick. I want to do more Legends. The problem with Legends is a lack of content, a lack of other things to do. The world is relatively empty. It's like very empty, actually, the world in Legends Arceus. There's not really much to do there. It's the world has got not enough things happening in it. If there was more shit, people would love it even more, but there isn't enough shit in there. That's like where the issue becomes. But yeah, what are you saying, Cameron?
I was saying people like even with Legends, you could be involved in a battle before you even start the battle because you don't even need to send out your Pokemon. Remember they have the whole like the mud mechanic or that one item where like you throw it at the Pokemon gets tired and then it won't even want to fight. You can just chuck the ball at it instead of sending out your Pokemon. It's just like so you save time. Like that is like the closest you will get to like actually fighting the Pokemon was like the throwing the item to make the Pokemon like tired and exhausted. Then you have to like throw the ball at it, that was a lot better than like that saved you a lot of time because you're like, oh, I want to fight, like I want to catch this, but I don't want to fight it right now. I know. Let me just either do a back strike, catch it off guard with the Ultra Ball, or like if it's like an alpha, like make it tired and then like chuck a ball at it. That way, you know, they can still do that in like a modern day game. Like you said, the only thing Legends was missing was like city, like you only had like the 2 clans in Jubilife Village, and that was it. Like I would love to have a game with the Legends mechanic in like a modern day Pokemon world. And that's something that they can definitely do. Palworld showed that they sort of can. I mean, with the world and stuff like that, like they can do stuff like that, but like they just don't want to for some reason, and it's like they don't want to mix for some reason. They're afraid of mixing these 2 things together, and I don't know why.
I don't know. I mean, hopefully it's something that they will eventually realize, like, and that's what I'm hoping that Palworld will do, because okay, let's be real, Palworld and Pokemon are 2 very different things. Like if you go into Palworld expecting to get the Pokemon experience, you're not going to get the Pokemon experience because it isn't Pokemon. No. You know, it is its own thing. It's again a survival game. So I think what we can like hope for here is that maybe they'll learn from Palworld, or they'll take aspects of Palworld and realize, ooh, we can do this too. Because I mean, hey, Palworld right now, in this exact moment, there are 1.4 million people playing it just on Steam. Okay, 1.4 million people are playing that game right now. Like, that's an insane number to think about.
Big.
You know, it's a huge freaking number. And the peak in the last 24 hours was 1.65 million. And the all-time peak was 2.1 million people. That is an insane number of people that are playing this game. Like, that is the biggest competition Pokemon has had since, I would argue, like, Digimon. Like, that's the only... Maybe, I guess you could say Yokai Watch was the closest other thing, but that was only really in Japan that it was, like, competitive against Pokemon.
Yeah.
But, like, Digimon was, like, the closest maybe thing you can even compare it to. Like, nothing has come to this level of competition against Pokemon. Like, the biggest franchise. Which, of course, then brings in the whole other issue, which is the whole plagiarism thing and all that sort of stuff. And I guess, like, what do you guys think about that? Because my opinion is the following. I hope they didn't use AI. I don't think they really used AI to create these, so I don't really care about that aspect. I hope they didn't, like, that, honestly, the AI thing, don't really care much about that. What I care more about is that they didn't steal Pokemon assets and just reuse those. That's my biggest fear. As long as they didn't just yoink assets and then make Pokemon, like make their own pals out of the real Pokemon models. Other than that, I don't really care. As long as they didn't do that. But what do you two think about it? Like, I mean, Suba, what do you think from a artist perspective? And Cam, how do you feel about it?
Well, with the PALs designs, they obviously took inspiration from Pokemon. Definitely, you can definitely see that.
Oh yeah.
But there is no evidence of that they used AI at all. Yeah. They have made a game based on AI, but doesn't mean that actually used AI in this game. So there's definitely that. They definitely looked at Pokemon somewhat and like, this is interesting. Let's change some things, And then they did obviously create Palworld with that, but they didn't technically steal anything from. In my opinion, if they did AI, I wouldn't really care because let's say that most games these days are going to do AI. It's a new generation now, okay? The future is here, and AI is... Pokemon will probably do it in the future. Literally. There's no reason why they won't use AI in the future.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's just the inevitable. It's not like, again, people can morally grandstand and, whatever they want to do. But at the end of the day, what happens. You can't really stop it because of where it's going.
No.
Unless you get regulations and stuff in, like government regulations. Otherwise, shit's not going to happen, okay? Let's be real.
Oh, no. Exactly.
But other than that, though, as long as they didn't steal assets, as long as there's no provable way of Game Freak or, Nintendo or Pokemon, whatever, Game Freak, proving they stole assets. Otherwise, honestly, there's not much you can do. And if they didn't steal it, then I don't really care. If they did, get after them. Go after them. If they didn't... then what's the complaint about? Like, I get it, they copy designs, but that's the thing. If we can talk about copying designs, we can go into the very, very specifics about what Pokemon has stolen, what everything's stolen. I think the best comparison, I think the best comparison I can actually make, the best comparison I can make of specifically Palworld to Pokemon is the comparison between Counter-Strike and Valorant. Okay, Valorant is technically just a ripoff. Like, if you look at it when it initially was announced, it was just a ripoff of Counter-Strike, okay? It was basically just CSGO 2.0, right? But what they did, though, was that the actual fundamental gameplay initially seemed like it was all the same. It looked like it was all the same. But then you realize, it's actually really different. Like, both of the games, Valorant was made to compete. Like, it was specifically made to compete and be a competition against Counter-Strike. But if you then played the game and you compared the two, now, when you look at the two games right now, you'll realize that they're two very different games. They fundamentally feel the same. A lot of the stuff was copied from one to the other. I mean, dude, there's this whole thing. Like, Valorant is more cartoony. There's this whole skin line they made, literally a whole set of skins in Valorant that were supposed to like they made this whole line of skins in Valorant, which were literally supposed to kind of imitate the art style of Counter-Strike. Because Counter-Strike looks more realistic, right? Like, the stuff in Counter-Strike looks way more realistic. Like, I'm showing on the screen here for viewers. Like, this is skins in Valorant, specifically skins that they're selling that are supposed to look more like the actual weapons in Counter-Strike. Again, Valorant's a cartoony game, but they intentionally made a skin set that literally looks like CSGO skins. So the point I'm trying to make is that if I was to compare the two, at the end of the day, they're two very different games, and they appeal to very different groups of people. I play more Valorant than I play CSGO now, because I've just gotten more used to playing Valorant because I prefer it. Valorant has abilities on the characters, like use abilities that you use and shoot and stuff. But fundamentally, the two games fundamentally work very same. Like, they use a very similar gameplay style. AKA, when you shoot, you have to stand still. It's very precision based, stuff like that. In that sense, it is basically the identically same game. But then when you look closer, you realize, this game looks a bit way different graphically. Like, CSGO looks realistic. Valorant is cartoony. CSGO uses realistic-looking weapons and sounds and a totally, different feeling, system of shooting and movement. Like, it's the same, but still different. Whereas Valorant, is more precision-based. You have to stand still, etc. And it feels slower. But the two games are still, very similar. It really is, comparing, Pokemon to Palworld, because it's that same thing where, sure, it looks very similar, but it's not the same. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I get that. It's like owning a gun. Let's say you got a model of a gun, and it's in the game. It's in Valorant. I was like, wait a minute, this model of a gun is in Call of Duty. You know, it's just like that. No one owns that model of the gun because it's an actual gun in real life.
Actually, in real life, somebody does own those. Like weapons are copyrighted, by the way. FYI.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, no. I guess what I'm trying to say is that like Palworld, at the end of the day, Palworld is different enough as a game that I don't see any issue with it. And I think the best part about Palworld is that it's basically competition. It's a good competition to encourage, again, as long as they didn't steal assets. And I don't know, Cam, what do you feel about that? Do you think they stole assets? How do you feel about the whole controversy about it? Like, what are your thoughts?
What Suva said, I can see inspiration from Pokemon, but as it stands, at least for me personally, I feel like they can benefit from hiring Fakemon artists like Suba or like other people that are really good at making fan designs, because I don't believe that these are like AI generated Pokemon or anything like that. I think that they're just very Pokemon inspired in design. I don't believe that they're AI. I remember there's like this whole story of somebody fabricating that it was AI or somebody stealing, which it was proven that it wasn't. Yeah, the models.
They faked that.
Yeah, it was like fake fabrication. I'm like, come on, guys, you're just making Pokemon fans look bad at that point. But like, I don't believe that they're fabricated or AI. I do believe that they can do a little bit more, because I feel like this team had a lot of different artists involved, because there are some pals that look insane, like super cool. Like I called it the samurai looking one, like the Bushi or whatever his name is, and it looks super cool. And then you got the electric one that looks just like Raichu, and I'm like, okay. So I feel like they can benefit for more creative designs. And don't get me wrong, there like people are comparing it to Pokemon. There are some pals that look like yokai. Some that look like Digimon to me. I feel like it pulled from more than just Pokemon in terms of design. It's just that because Pokemon is the most popular one, it's the one that people gravitates towards to say, oh, they're ripping this off. It's just like what you said with Counter-Strike and Valorant, and like even like Call of Duty and things like that. Like a game can exist and pull inspiration from other games. It's not just that one. Now, like I said, there are pals that some do look like some Pokemon. Yeah. But I don't think that they all do. Like I just said, there are some that look like yokai. There's one that looks like a Digimon to me. Like they pull from a lot of different stuff. It's not just Pokemon. However, the catching mechanic is very Pokemon-esque, or at least Legends-esque in my opinion. But for the most part, it's I don't believe that it's AI. I do believe that they can be more creative with the designs, because if you want to stand on your own as like a monster catching or monster collecting game, you got to try to do a little bit more with some of these designs. Like I said, there are some that I really love. Like there are some designs I'm like, whoa, that looks super cool. I wish that was like in a Pokemon game or something like that. But then there are some where I'm like, I mean, that one's kind of eh. And I mean, I do that with Pokemon too. Like with Gen 9, there are some designs I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. There are some that are like, it could be better. It's the same with every monster collecting game. You're gonna like some, you're gonna not like some. But I don't think that we should like say that, oh, just because this feels, or just because it's competing with Pokemon on certain aspects, because it's really not. But just because it's competing with my favorite thing, it must be a ripoff. That's such a terrible mentality that I wish people would stop. Even if it, like, sometimes it might be true, but just because you feel like as a fan you might feel threatened by something new, like even when Yokai Watch came out, people felt threatened by it. Remember, they were calling like the Pokemon killer, things like that, when it really wasn't. Yokai was doing its own thing. It was so different from Pokemon.
So different.
And it was like completely different. And it was the same with like with what was it, like back in the day with Digimon. Digimon is so fundamentally different and darker than Pokemon will ever be, but because it's a monster collecting, monster catching game with its own mechanics and everything like that, we jump to say it's ripping off Pokemon because Pokemon is the most popular thing all around the world. And it, like I said, it's a bad mentality. It's a franchise killing mentality at that, but it's a terrible mentality that I wish people would just stop, in my opinion. And that's kind of where I am with Palworld. Do I like it? Yes, I think it's a really cool game. I just wish it was, a bit more creative with the designs, some of them. And also, like, again, we should like stop the whole like it's a ripoff because it's threatening my favorite thing. You know, it's a terrible mentality in my opinion.
That's the thing that annoys me the most is that people are just like, you know what it is? It's people that it's a sunk cost fallacy, right? Like it's basically people have invested so much time and they've attached themselves so much to these freaking games that it's part of their personality. So if anything threatens a part of them, it's like they have attached Pokemon to themselves. It's a part of them. Then they've made Pokemon a part of them, and because of that, an attack against Pokemon or even a threat against Pokemon, even though it's not an attack, but it's just like any threat to Pokemon that they may perceive is a perceived threat against themselves, right? Like it's it's like a threat against. I
totally agree.
Yeah, it's like they see that as a threat against them and a threat against all that time they've basically wasted, realistically, right? But like that's what it is. It's like they see that as a threat against their their love for something and their investment. Exactly. So I feel like that's the thing. Like Palworld to me is in that I don't think we're going to see the effect of Palworld on Pokemon for at least the next 4 or 5 years, okay? I don't think we're going to see the effect of Palworld right now at all. Like, don't expect this year's game, or if there even is a game this year, whatever it might be, just don't expect to see any impact from it anytime soon. Because at the end of the day, the results can be seen in the sales of Pokemon games. Pokemon still sells a shit ton, okay? Pokemon still is the best, like one of the best-selling franchises of all time. Still the biggest media franchise in existence, right? It makes more money than Star Wars. It makes more money than Mario. It makes more money than a lot of other stuff. Pokemon makes a shit ton of money. And the only way to keep making that money and making the investors happy and stuff is to keep churning out the games. Because the games are, again, just massive commercials. And I've said this over and over, and I'll say it again. They're big advertising, just what do you call them? Like boards, just big advertising boards for the toys, for the cards, for the stuff like that. Like Pokemon makes way more money from that. Of course, does it make money from the games as well? Sure it does. Of course, dude, one Pokemon a new gen release is like $2 billion, okay? $2 billion. That's a lot of money. 2 billies is still a lot of cash, okay? But at the end of the day, something like Pokemon Go pulls in $1 billion a year. You know what I mean? Like every single year. And that's just a mobile game that's not particularly good. I still play it, but it's not the best. But it still makes a shit ton of money. And that's like the thing, is at the end of the day, we are not going to see the impact of Palworld at all right now. And I don't expect Nintendo to sue them and all these people crying like, oh, they're going to get sued, or oh, they should get sued. I don't think they will, like realistically. At the end of the day, it's a different game. As long as they didn't use assets or anything from Pokemon, they're fine, okay? The game has a different name, it's a different slogan, different naming, everything. Everything's different about Palworld than it is for Pokemon. And I think the thing that pissed me off the most was these people making these, like, I saw a lot of, like, people that made good points, where, like, they were like, yeah, so look at some of these comparisons, like, they clearly just stole, like, Cinderace. I think the Cinderace one was very on point. But there was, like some of them were just, like, such a stretch. Like a penguin. You can't say a penguin is a ripoff of Piplup. Penguins are a real animal. Like, you can't, like, say that. It's ridiculous. And by that merit, like, some of them are really, just really, really too much. I'm going to put it like that, okay? Some of them are really overdoing it with, like, the stuff. Not all of them. Some of them are really clear and, like, obvious that they're just ripoffs. But some of them are just really, like grasping at straws.
The cheap one is the one that makes me laugh all the time, because we're like, look at this bite, like, because the pal was like a bipedal sheep. You're like,
and they were like, oh my god, it's Mareep. And I'm like, Mareep is literally just a sheep.
I'm like, sheep, like, by your logic, real life is copying Pokemon at that point.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Palworld sheep's on 2 legs, while the Pokemon Mareep and Lulu
is on all 4s, right? Yeah, it's
stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but. Again, I think in regards to this game, I think it's a fun journey. I think it's a fun game to play, but I don't think it's going to beat Pokemon in the long run at the end of the day, because it's not about, like, these games, like, at the end of the day, like, you know, what they're doing is, Pokemon is a franchise. It's not a video game. Pokemon is a franchise. It's a whole set of things. Palworld is just a video game. That's it.
Yes.
It's like, unless they can start making cartoons out of it, unless they can start making cards out of it that people are willing to buy, you know. But that's the thing. They got to get that stuff going. If that shit succeeds, then Palworld is massive competition. If it doesn't...
That's what JOHTO tried,
you know. But that's the thing. If you can't succeed with all the other stuff to make you into a massive conglomerate, you're not really going to succeed with the rest of it either. You're not
Yeah.
really going to be making it very far, if you can't do those things. Because at the end of the day,
Pokemon.
yeah, at the end of the day, the game has made a shit ton of money. That's all that matters to them, right? They're a small studio. There's just one guy, who owns the company, and he has hired a bunch of people. The man is now a multi-millionaire. He's probably happy about that. At the end of the day, unless he wants to push this further and make Pokemon, like make Palworld into the level of Pokemon, I'm pretty sure this is where this game ends. Like, we're gonna maybe see some small things about it here and there, maybe some update, maybe a Palworld 2 in like a year or two. But I don't expect this to really compete with Pokemon in the grand scale of things, because we're still talking about Pokemon, okay? People are still gonna buy it, no matter what. That's the thing. That's what people have to realize.
Pokemon is never leaving. It's here to stay.
No, and I know that people are saying like maybe this is gonna make them like rethink or delay stuff in Pokemon, and I guess I'm curious about that. And I guess we can kind of end it there because we've already been going for an hour and 10 minutes, and my throat is dying. But I guess I'm curious what you two think. Do you think that they would be willing to delay a Pokemon game, like in in terms of their current schedule? Because I talked about this in my video today, but we're running now on a course of where I think we haven't had a delay in a Pokemon game, but we haven't had like a kind of like a Pokemon like stoppage, right? Like a year where like no release.
Since 2015.
Since 2015, which if you look at it here, because like there's actually a cool like a little timeline release timeline. I'm gonna put it on the screen here for the viewers to see, and I guess I'll send it in Discord as well for you guys. But it basically shows you the entire timeline of Pokemon releases, and we've never gone more than a year without a release, right? It's always been like about like the maximum amount of space between releases has only ever been, a single year. So you can see all those like light yellow one spots there are years where we didn't get a release. The last time we were on a hiatus this long was 2015. So there's a year right after Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and then Sun and Moon came out after that. In 2015, though, we did have a few spin-off games, if I remember correctly, like Mystery Dungeon. One of the Mystery Dungeon games came out. Yeah, and then before that, we had 3 years of releases, and then 1 year gap there in 2011 after Black and White, and then we had 3 years again, and then we had a gap. Now, keep in mind, the longest distance we've had, where the space where we had the biggest gap, was back between Crystal and like Fire and Leaf Green, because there you had a year of release, then one game, then a year without a release. Like, you had 2000, so that's Crystal. Then 2001 was nothing. 2002 was Ruby and Sapphire. Then 2003 was, again, nothing. But at the start of 2004, you had Fire and Leaf Green, and then Emerald later in that same year, right? And Colosseum. So they dropped 3 games in 2004 because they missed 2003, right? 2003, probably would have been Fire and Leaf Green. But I guess it must have been delayed or something because it came out in like February?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is this. We haven't missed a year. So if they do miss this year or they miss next year, it would make sense as a break year. But I don't think that's going to happen because of how much more money they're making now. Like, you got to remember, what happened also when Sun and Moon came out? Like, that time frame. What happened in 2016? Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
2016 was the release of Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go changed everything for the franchise because it proved to them that they can make Pokemon massive again and make a shit ton of money, not relying solely on the video games being made by Game Freak. Not the fact that, not relying on, releasing every year. Not that. Rather, they realized from this release, from Pokemon Go's release, that Game Freak doesn't have to make everything for it to be a success in Pokemon. So let's have some other people work on it. That's why ILCA ended up making BDSP. That's why, all these other things. And I think they realized the more they put out, the more people will want. And they got to supplement Pokemon Go by releasing new games. Because if they run out of new Pokemon to release in Go, the interest is going to drop there. So they have to, they're playing this kind of catch-up game with each other, right? Where, Pokemon Go releases a lot of Pokemon, and they're getting close to, the most recent games. So the new games need to, release new shit. So, it's just this rat race that they're running. But the fact that they haven't stopped now in such a long freaking time is pretty nuts. And keep in mind, I would almost count the DLC years as their gap years, because the DLC realistically is not that massive in scale, right?
It's made by a smaller team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Cam, go on. You can continue your point.
I was gonna say that they confirmed. I think they told us this when they announced the Sword and Shield DLC, that the DLC is made by a smaller team, while the big team is working on the next like major game, like the next
Did they
generation.
announce that? Did they announce that?
Yeah. Remember they said that back when they were like, oh, going forward, or like in the past, we've released enhanced versions, and going forward, we'll be
Oh, but didn't they say
replacing
that
them with
during Sword and
DLC.
Shield though? Like, I think they
Yeah,
said that. Yeah,
when
yeah, right, yeah.
when they're like, oh yeah, the DLC is made by a smaller team of younger individuals that like have a bigger feel. That's why the DLCs always feel so different compared to the like main games. Like for example, the Isle of Armor and Crown Tenja, we got free roaming cameras, which is why like I prefer to like stay in those areas versus like mainland Galar. And with the Teal Mask and Indigo Disc, like they felt so, honestly, as cool as they were, they felt so disconnected from like main, but like the only thing
It
keeping
feels like the
them,
main games are the filler.
yeah,
In
the
some
only
way.
thing keeping the only thing keeping the Teal Mask and the Indigo disconnected to the main story was the Terapagos subplot. Other than that, they felt so disconnected from what was happening in mainland Paldea. And I'm not saying Paldea was bad, but like they felt so disconnected from the mainland Paldea that like you could say that those were their own games made by a different team. The only thing keeping them in Scarlet and Violet was the fact that they're just Scarlet and Violet DLCs. But if you were to make these two like their own individual games, you wouldn't be able to like tell at certain points. Like they felt like their own individual games, which is a point because they're replacing third versions. Like what Indigo Disc, especially the Elite Four, they felt more like gym leaders than Elite Four members because you had to do a whole puzzle and you had to fight them. And they had like the whole like the badge thing going on.
Yeah.
And then after that, you fight the champion. They like combined the gym leaders. Like they basically every the Elite Four members in Indigo Disc had the power, I would say, of two combined gym leaders, which is what they wanted because you're fighting. They basically took like the concept of 8 gym leaders and put it with the like 2 Elite Four members. That's kind of why they were so hard to fight, especially like Drayton and stuff like that. And they had to make up for, oh, you're basically taking on another set of elite gym leaders, but in the form of an Elite Four that feels like they're two trainers because they're all double battles to begin with and they're all like super high level, and they supplemented that and then gave you a champion at the end of it. So really this especially Indigo Disc especially just felt like another edition, or like it felt like a separate game with the big legendary payoff being Terapagos at the end.
So do you think, in your opinion, like, do you guys think that they will do any delays, or do you think they'll do a gap year at any point in the next, like, let's say 3 years?
I don't think. No, they won't. Why should they? They don't. Why should they make a gap?
They have,
like, because they're doing so well. They don't need to make a gap. You know.
And they have like they have their workforce split into several teams working on their own individual projects. There's even a team in Game Freak that doesn't even work on Pokemon games. And then they got Team A, Team B, and then Team C. They got Ilka if they ever need somebody to fall back on. They got Niantic. They have like Game Freak themselves and Pokemon as a company has grown so much, especially in the video games department, that they don't need to take a gap year, because if one team needs a break, the other team can just fill in for them if need be. Like there's no need for a gap year because I feel like
I'm looking at Game Freak right now. So they have 169 employees as of 2022, right? So 169 people that work at Game Freak. Keep in mind, Game Freak does not make their 3D models. Most of that is done by Creatures. Creatures does a lot of that. So keep in mind, they don't even have to do that part. That's not even their responsibility. They have to do all the other stuff. Like programming the games and like writing the story in the world and building out the world and stuff, but they don't do the actual 3D modeling of the Pokemon. That's not even done by them. And they have a subsidiary company. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Game Freak apparently has a subsidiary company called Koa Studios, or Koa Games actually, which is Koa Games, which is a company owned by them. And I think they have worked on a few games. King of Avalon is something they apparently they've worked on, and like some small stuff. Apparently a game called Little.
Just like Yoko Watch, because Yoko Watch had a partnership with Ghibli Studios to do the artwork.
Oh yeah. But that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, they have a decent amount of 169 people is still a decent amount of people. Sure, it's not as much as some other studios. Like, I don't know, Riot Games just I think fired 500 people. Like, you know, like I think, you know, there's a lot of studios that maybe have more people there. Like they used to have 4,200 people working. Now it's more like 3,000 something, right? Because they fired like over 500 people or something like that. But basically, you know, Pokemon Game Freak can definitely get more people, and 169 people involved is still a lot, given the fact that you also have Creatures Inc., right? Like Creatures Inc.
More people.
Employees. Let's see. Here we go. So Creatures Inc., for example, has 232 people as of April last year. So they have more people in Creatures. Keep in mind, Creatures, specifically what Creatures does is that they make Pokemon TCG cards, right? They've also worked on other stuff. Like I think they worked on the TCG, and also they worked on the Mother series. So that's like Earthbound, right?
Yeah.
They worked on that a long time ago. And they share ownership of the Pokemon company with Nintendo and Game Freak. So, right? So they're very involved. Like they're the guys who are handling all the cards and stuff, but they also do all the 3D modeling work, you know, all that kind of stuff. Which is, you know, it's a lot, you know what I mean? There's a lot of them, 232 people, and they're also involved. So you can't disregard that fact. So keep in mind, you have those two companies, then you have the influence of Nintendo, which can help them, and you have also the Pokemon Company employees, which will handle a lot of the other work that Game Freak, like, Game Freak doesn't need to deal with promotional shit. That's all handed over to, like, the Pokemon Company. They do all the promos and all that kind of bullshit is done by them. So, like, you have a lot of people. It's not like we're talking about, you know, a small indie studio with 25 people that are working on it, or like 2 people in a basement. We're talking about a massive studio with a massive amount of people involved. You got Nintendo in their corner. You got the Pokemon Company as like part of their like big scheme. You got Creatures helping them. You've got other smaller studios like Bandai being involved with other projects. You have ILCA doing like their, you know, BDSP, for example. Like you have a lot of people involved. It's not a small studio, so the likeliness of them delaying anything, as people think they will do or want them to do, it's just not going to happen. You know, it's always a chance. There's always a slim chance it could happen, right? There's always a chance it could happen. But realistically, it won't, right? Like, realistically, they're not going to be delaying anything, as far as I'm aware.
Well, another company, I forgot, Monolith Soft helps them with the world now. Monolith Soft.
Oh, it does?
Also, yeah, Monolith Soft is who helped them with Legends and who helped them with Scarlet and Violet, I believe.
Let's see.
And
Monolith Soft, let me see, actually looking up like some stuff about it. So did Monolith Soft actually assist with the development of PLA? Around the time when PLA Legends was first leaked, then there were some claims that Monolith Soft, the Nintendo studio that developed the Xenoblade games and co-developed a lot of Nintendo's biggest titles, actually assisted Game Freak with this game. I was, however, not able to verify it so far. So I'm looking here if anybody found any info on it. But apparently I'm going through one by one of the credits for Legends Arceus, and I found one Monolith employee, Noriko Uono, and she's listed right under the lead, so she probably had important role. But people are asking, like, is there any indication that she works at Game Freak now? Because Monolith as a company wasn't actually listed anywhere in the credits, so it is not guaranteed that they were involved. But they have a branch in Kyoto that assists in making art assets for some Nintendo games. So that's where Uono works. So they've listed all the games they've assisted in on their website. So if you go to their website and you look at all the games that they have ever like worked on, they list a lot of like you know, like Xenoblade, of course, because that's what their main thing. Splatoon, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm scrolling. I don't really see Pokemon at any point here though. I don't see Legends anywhere. Like, yeah, I don't see Legends Arceus anywhere in this list. So I don't know if they were involved. It might have been just a person or two. But they might have had some support role or something like that. Like if we go over to what do you call it? Like if you check their Wikipedia as well, it only really lists, again, doesn't really list like Legends Arceus. So I don't think necessarily that they were actually involved. Maybe like 1 or 2 people came through, you know, and helped out. But I don't know if they were actually involved. But yeah, they're at the end of the day, even if they weren't, who cares? They still have, again, Nintendo, probably a lot of smaller studios, and again, Creatures. There's a lot of people still involved with it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that's where we're at. So I don't know, guys. What do you think? Any further inputs you guys have?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well,
same here.
All right, I guess I'm going to take... Okay, actually, I found a tweet about it. The narrative around Legends Arceus visuals is going to hit a hard pivot soon. Looking forward to it. Internet, why didn't Nintendo let so-and-so assist and help on the game? Well, about that, Monolith Soft may have had more offhand than we thought, huh? But yeah, I don't know. They're basically saying, like, the Monolith helped on this to some capacity, but this is from, like, some sort of leaker person, but I don't know if we can actually trust what they're saying, so yeah. I'm not sure if I'm going to take that as being truth. So yeah, just gonna leave it at that, to be honest. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching. I think that's gonna pretty much summarize it. Do you guys think? Let us know in the comment section down below. Is there gonna be a delay in Pokemon games going into the future? I don't know. Personally, for me as a content creator, I'd prefer if there wasn't. But hey, you know, it is what it is. Nonetheless, though, I want to thank you guys all for watching. Again, check out our boy Subarashi over on Twitter/X, and of course, don't forget check out Camtendo, our friend over on YouTube. Guys, you have anything more to say, or is that it?
That's pretty much it for me, guys.
All right. Suba, anything you want to say?
Don't know. Just have a good day, I guess.
That's all right, man. That's good enough. That's good enough. But yeah, guys, thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out and bye-bye from us.